there's two major issues facing Roosevelt Island that you would focus on right at the outset.
Yeah, transportation is the biggest problem on Roosevelt Island. There are not enough options for the people to go off the island and get to work. The Q102 bus is a nightmare. It's a simple thing. It's always out of service. There's people that need to get to Queens. They don't have any direct routes on the bus to get to Manhattan. They have to take the subway, which is always out of service, off hours, and we only have one train working right now. The other thing that's very important to realize is the secondary effect of what can happen without a good transportation. There is no emergency plan to get off that island. It is a very big problem. There has to be able to have docks on that island and ferry service in case of emergency to have an evacuation plan. That's number one that needs to be done right now.
Rebecca?
I think transportation, but also self-governance. The REOC board needs to be overhauled, and we need to pass legislation in Albany to insist that the REOC board be elected by the people of the island who live on the island. There should be no taxation without representation. And so REOC and self-governance, as well as transportation and affordable housing. There are a couple of buildings coming out of the Mitchell-Lama program. Those people are scared they're going to be priced out of their apartments. And I think those are three of the top issues.
Gus?
Sure. Transportation, governance, affordable housing, absolutely the top issues on Roosevelt Island. I've come out with pretty explicit plans on this. We had a long conversation about it last week over Roosevelt Island. I firmly believe that we should go for some actually achievable things on the transportation front, like direct express bus service to Midtown and to the hospitals on the Upper East Side. Going back to your question earlier about what we would do with the legal settlement funding, one of the priorities I mentioned was infrastructure spending. Again, one of my wonky things I talked about on Roosevelt Island is investing in the signaling and controls technology in the New York City subway system, which would allow for significant capacity increases on the F line, among other lines around the city, which would have a great benefit for Roosevelt Island as well as for the entire city. In terms of REOC elections, I'm absolutely in favor of the agreement that our former governor and the legislature had worked out several years ago that has not been followed more recently, calling for a mix of directly elected, elected and then appointed by the governor appointees to the board, and a mix from the city and state sources. I think it's unrealistic to say that the entire board would be directly elected. Again, went into this at length last week. REOC is a public corporation. The assets are owned by the people of the entire state of New York, and it's simply unrealistic to think that the entire board would be elected. It's not taxation without representation.
Yes.
Ed? All right.
Sure. We were just out of Roosevelt Island last week. I see some familiar faces in the audience. Look, there are short-term and long-term issues affecting Roosevelt Island. Look, it's governance. Again, I like to go to the root cause and then work up or down, wherever you like to view it. So it's self-governance, first of all, because the folks on Roosevelt Island need to be the ones that are making the decisions out there. It should be a bunch of folks on the second floor up in the state capitol, 150 miles away. But short-term, what I'm talking about on the community board is that life-altering, generational changing project out there, which is the Cornell Tech project, and it feeds into the transportation issue because the powers that be, the go along, get along gang, thought that we don't need barging out there. Any of you who have ever been out there know it's a two-lane road. I said last year, full-throatedly, this idea of 40%, 80%, we need to be barging 100% for the duration of that contract, of that project, which is 30 years. And that way we can reintroduce ferry service that we had out there back in the 80s, because now we can sustain it. And I think my time is up. So I think those are the three issues I think that are important.
So before we go to closing statements,